What's going on, guys, and welcome back. Let's do our honest review video of NINGNING. I did pull one copy of her, got a few artifacts along the way, but I did have to pity, unfortunately. Let me know how y'all's summons went. Hopefully they went better than mine. But yeah, I'll give you guys the breakdown of what I learned, how to use her, what I tried out with, and then whether or not, like, you should be picking her. I know people are drawing a lot of similarities to DJ Bazaar. Is she even worth it? Let's go. We'll talk about all of it, but real quick, guys, if you haven't already, check out my video I did on the Amazon channel, just talking about the Espa collab as a whole, especially using your Espa bookmarks. So give that one a watch before or after you watch this one, and then we can tie them together. All right. Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, guys, let's jump straight into the builds. On the left-hand side here, I have a more utility-focused build with effectiveness for her full strip, because unlike DJ Bazaar, she does have a strip available on top of her Barrier Inversion, and I think that's one of her main differentiators if we're going to compare the two units, the two Soul Weavers. Some effect resist, whatever we have left over, and then the rest in a bulk and speed. Not a very well thought-out build, guys, just something I wanted to test. Fast enough to go, before most damaging units, but obviously we're not going to be racing or contesting with this build. And then on the right hand side, this is where I went for maximum speed, and I could still only hit 289, so that does tell you a little bit something about her base speed. So those of you that are trying to make her go extremely fast, keep in mind this build, I have every speed sub at least at 20. Okay, so every piece so far at 20, the ring at 22, and then obviously the boots, main speed boots. And I'm still only at 289. So in this build, I still had to worry about units like Conqueror Lilius and obviously anything faster than that, especially 300 plus. So she doesn't seem like the easiest unit to gear if you guys are just worried about speed. So keep that in mind if you guys are newer. All right, guys, next up, let's just break down her skills, talk about what's good, what's not good about it, comparable units, etc. We did Grace to Growth her, so I am missing the 10% effect chance. I would highly recommend y'all get that, but we'll go over skill enhancements after. So, NINGNING skill 3, right? We have the very coveted Barrier Inversion. I keep mentioning this. If you guys don't have access to a unit that has Barrier Inversion, I think NINGNING's value will go up, at least in terms of if you want to pull for her or not. On top of that, if you do bring her against barriers, which I think we should always aim to bring her against barriers, so units like Fallen Cecilia, units like ROL, even I was using her against units like Arya today, where she actually performed pretty well. If we do have that, we do some insane damage with the inversion, as well as 100% combat readiness push, guys, because it gets doubled, and she'll effectively take, back-to-back turns. Her skill 2 is also really, really good. It has some strengths and weaknesses. The strengths being that this combat readiness push with attack up, unlike Amelia's or auxiliary lots, for example, will not proc units like Politis, units like Green Celine, because it is an attack effect. Now, the downsides is you can't target the unit that you want. Typically, though, your highest attack unit is the unit you're going to want to push, but this does lower the amount of versatility, because sometimes we'll want to push other combat readiness onto like non-attack units, or there might be a secondary DPS that we need to get pushed up before, instead of just, the highest attack unit in general. But overall, I think this is very powerful too. It does have 100% uptime because it is a 2-turn attack with a 2-turn cooldown, and she cycles so fast, guys. She'll be lapping your other units and your enemies as well. On top, and then of course just the massive combat readiness manipulation, minus 30 because it's an attack, and then plus 30 on your allied unit. Last but not least, we have Somber, which is just a 40% after Mola chance to stun for 1 turn, and then we can increase that soul burn to 100%. Very powerful on any unit that has a chance, a 10 soul. 100% stun, guys, is very powerful. And on top of that, if you bring other stunners to the table, things like ROL, special change ROL, she can double down, and you don't have to go for a stun. You can actually just hit the target and get that CR push for yourself if needed. So a little bit of cool interactions on that front. Now, let's talk about her weaknesses. The main thing really is, guys, she's pretty hard to gear. And on top of that, we don't want to pick her super early. There's a lot of other Soul Weavers that have sustain, right? She doesn't have direct sustain besides getting it through her artifact, through maybe Guardian Ice Crystals, maybe Doctor's Bag here, things like that. She's not going to have a ton of support. So we want to bring her in more aggressive compositions to really, really double down on the the combat readiness manipulation, the attack up, the stuns, and then of course the barrier inversion, and then the strips. So if we take that into account, we want to make sure we can bring her into units that are obviously have barriers, and then we also have to worry about her speed, because in aggressive comps, if your opponent goes faster, we're going to be in big trouble. Where with other Soul Weavers, it doesn't matter as much if your opponent goes first, because we're typically built to sustain and then recover the team, and through that fashion. So NINGNING is a little bit hard to gear. She's a little bit hard to use because you have to bring her in specific compositions. And for real-time arena, guys, I think you have to pick her way later in the draft, meaning you have to wait and try to bait out your opponent to pick those barriers, pick things like that she's going to shine in. So off the bat already, I think she's not a must-pull for most players. And especially if you have DJ Bazaar, guys, I'm not sure if this is going to change at all, but if you're already running a successful Desert Jewel Bazaar, I think you can potentially pass on Ningning or just go for one copy just for collection in case you want her later, things like that. But I think DJ Bazaar is much more versatile. Just speaking of Soul Weavers that have barrier inversion, but Ningning has strengths obviously with the attack up in the strip, so don't write her off just for that. So overall, the cons, it's really just hard to gear, has to pick her a little bit carefully and smarter than just first picking like other types of Soul Weavers like Destina, DJ Bazaar, etc. But once again, if you need that barrier inversion, I think it is very powerful. I think her cycling makes her so fun, and I can't wait to see what kind of comps people bring up. She's not an all-powerful Soul Weaver that you can just use in every single draft, every single team. You have to use her a little bit carefully, a little bit smarter. And then once again, she is kind of hard to gear in my opinion. So yeah, I'll wrap it up, guys, at the end with the final thoughts on must pull or not. But let's go ahead to the next part and talk about skill enhancements here. For skill enhancements, you really want to make sure you get the 10% chance to stun here because you will be pressing skill 1 quite a bit. Not as often as you think because your skill 2 and skill 3 will be up all the time, but for how cheap this is, get the 10% stun chance there. The cooldown and butterfly effect is very important. You can skip this last 2 damage. I only got it because once again I am under Grace of Growth. And then the skill 3, go for -1 turn cooldown for the cycling, and then if you can get the extra CR push there, that's nice, but you can probably leave that for now. But remember, guys, if you max it out, you do have 100% when you're fighting barriers, and you should always be trying to fight barriers when you're drafting or playing with Ningning. So I would try to max out skill 3. Skill 1 just gets a 10% effect chance, and then skill 2, you can ignore all the damage dealt, just go for skill 3. Unless you're doing some weird crit build, maybe to enable Cavil or something, but that's beyond my scope of territory. All right, next up, let's talk about artifacts. Okay, next up, artifacts. We'll talk about her artifact specifically by itself, but since I didn't end up running on her, and I actually don't think it's great on her, let's talk about what I was using, and it's mostly just Doctor's Bag. I think Doctor's Bag is a no-brainer choice. If you guys can't think of anything else to run on her, run this, as it gives us the very coveted Dispel, some bonus healing too, but the fact that she has no Dispels in her kit and she's a Soul Weaver, sometimes that can be rough, and her being able to Dispel when she casts that skill 3, that barrier inversion, if you get rid of any attack downs from, like, let's say a Conqueror Lilius, maybe a blind from a Desert Jewel Bazaar, anything like that could be super important. Having access to that I think is really, really nice. So this is kind of just an all-around good artifact. Other than that, since her own artifact wasn't good, if you run the utility build, I could see something like Guardian Ice Crystals always being good. This is like good on any Soul Weaver pretty much, as we get free stats, effect resist, which could be very nice. And on top of that, right, the out of turn healing is super, super powerful if you guys want that extra push. But typically, since you're an aggressive player, or since she's more of an aggressive style unit, I think Doctor's Bag is kind of just what you run in the beginning. And let me know if y'all tried anything else out. But let's go ahead and talk about her own artifact. Ningning's own artifact, EXIF Detective Eat Gadget. After using a non-attack skill, increases combat readiness of the caster by 10% and removes 10 souls from the enemy. Can only be activated once every 4 turns. At plus 15, guys, that means that's going to be 15 and 15 respectively, 15% and 15 souls. And then at max limit break, obviously, will be 20% combat readiness push and 20 souls. The reason I think Ningning is going to struggle to use this artifact, guys, is just it's very hard to use her skill 3 and make sure we're going first, and also trying to remove souls from enemies that are going after like a soul manipulation composition, such as mages, aggressive mages or cleavers that want to spam a lot of books. A lot of times, guys, our Ningning may not be able to get that first turn. We're going to get interrupted or maybe even get stunned, provoked, whatever have you, and then just having this activation is going to be very difficult to remove those souls in time. We can always remove the souls later, but by then they've already gotten use out of their soul burns and it might not be effective. Instead, I think the best case use for this right now is units like Elena. Really only her. I can't think of anything else. If you guys can, please let me know. But Elena's a unit that we sometimes bring into those aggressive and fast team compositions, right? Because she can activate her skill 2 out of turn, give that combat readiness push, and then remove 20 souls if we max limit break that, which can be absolutely a game changer. So overall, Ningning's own arty, I wouldn't recommend to pick up just for her. I would try to pick up one copy in general, even though if only Elena right now is the only unit I can think of that it works great on. I think it has such a powerful effect, and the fact that it's limited, I would try to get one if you can, boys, with powder if you play RTA seriously. Overall, though, let's bring it back to Ningning. And it's kind of going to be the same sentiment. If you play RTA seriously, and especially if you don't have access to DJ Bazaar, and you need that barrier inversion, I would try to pick up one copy of her. But the fact that she is kind of hard to gear, the fact that she's a little bit niche, where we only want to bring her into barriers, unlike DJB, unlike other Soul Weavers, I don't think a lot of players will actually need her. And then, you know, doubling down again, on the hard to gear, hard to run, it could be very tricky, especially for my newer players out there. So really, only the fact that she's limited, if you're new and you don't take PvP too seriously, just try to get one copy, just because I do think she's really nice to have. Really strong, I think, in Arena and Guild Wars, if you guys value those. Much easier to set up comps for her and just bring her against barrier teams. She can be very powerful there, especially, you know, bring her against Paras guys. But overall, I think she's kind of tricky to run right now, so definitely not a must-pull unit. Just get one copy of her, one copy of her artifact, in case maybe she gets, you know, some other units come out that we need her for, or things get adjusted. Just get one, because anytime there's a limited unit out, we don't know if Espo will be run again next year, okay? So stay on the side of caution. Stay on the side of caution. Let's wait to see what Giselle and Karina do too. Hopefully we get to see their previews before Ningning leaves. Ningning's banner, guys, will be ending, though. By the time Ningning's banner ends on the 14th, she'll be gone, and Karina and Giselle won't be pullable yet. There's actually no overlap, so we're going to rely on a patch preview to see their skills early, and hopefully we can, and then you guys can decide how badly you want Ningning. But in general, all limiteds, guys, try to get one of, and she is pretty good, just very hard to use, very hard to gear. All right, guys, well, let's wrap it up there for my honest Ningning review. Let me know what artifacts y'all been trying out and how your summons went. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, guys.